Hey, fellow Lovecraft fans, it's Sandy Peterson again, and we're going to talk about the factions. Some people have asked for summaries of how the expansion factions work, so we're going to go over each of them and the way they function and what their personality is, so you'll know which faction is right for you, assuming, of course, you're not buying them all. So, and if you are buying them all, it'll give you a little leg up when you're playing against your friends for the first time. So first, let's talk about Yog-Sothoth, the opener of the way. Woohoo, one of my favorites. So, this faction, Yog-Sothoth's, is, he's probably the hardest of all the factions to master. Here's why. In order to properly operate his faction to the best ability, you need to know what the other players are able to do, and you need to be able to look at the map and tell what the situation is and evaluate it properly. Now, of course, that helps any faction, but for him, it's critical. Now, you have to be very sensitive what the other players are doing when you play Yog-Sothoth. You're not reactive. You're proactive. You're taking steps. You're saying, aha, I see what he's doing, therefore I will now do X that will make their life hell. And you have to pick that X just right. He's all about timing. He has spell books that are good, like once for a big decision or twice for a big decision. You have to pick those big decisions and play them at the right time and use them to the best advantage. And if you do that, he can be the most powerful faction and he can trounce other factions in a way that I've never seen any other faction do. But he can also come up really short, and you can bungle your big moment and be left in the dust panting. So that's his secret. It's about timing, which makes sense. He's the god of time, right? So you're trying to know what's going on, master his tools, use them right. And then with him, you can dominate the map. Now, we're going to talk about Tsathoggua and the Sleeper faction. So he's kind of all about cheap tricks. He has lots of possibilities and choices that he can do. You know, like he has a couple spellbooks that each spellbook gives him a huge variety of things he can do. He can copy other people's special abilities. He can do an action before combat with his energy nexus. Even lethargy, his core ability where he sits there and doesn't do anything, is for saving up power for the end of the turn that then you can turn to good use in a variety of different ways. So the way you play him is all through the game, you have these little monkey tricks you're doing. You get lots of small advantages. You have some little tactical triumph here and little tactical triumph here. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to add up all these little edges that you get through the game to one big edge. So he's actually quite different from Yog-Sothoth. Yog-Sothoth, once in the game, he will triple his power and cause everyone to live in hell. But you are constantly getting a little edge and a little edge and a little edge, and then the cumulative effort at all this hopefully will put you in the lead, and everyone else will hate you, and you'll win. So that's the difference, okay? Lots of little tricks versus one big blowout. Okay, next, let's talk about the Windwalker. The Windwalker actually is pretty straightforward. He's just a thug. Now, he's a thug that takes a while to blossom. He grows over time, gets tougher, accumulates stuff. He's not really good till you have some Nafkaz. Both the Great Old Ones are out. Enemies have a fair number of doom points. But he's straightforward. You look at what he's doing, you figure out what his spellbooks are, what you're doing, you make your plan, and then simply you just to follow on through the plan. It's not complex. He's really as simple to play as Cthulhu or Crawling Chaos. But he feels differently. Although he is a combat creature like Cthulhu. But his faction is not necessarily him. Well, he is too. So that's what he's like. Straightforward, easy to play, easy to adapt. Whereas you might take a game or two to figure out Yog-Sothoth, but of course it's really rewarding when you do. And now the faction that many of you have been waiting for. Let's talk about the Chochos. Well, here what I'm going to show you. This is totally not Ubosathla. This is in fact the Smog Monster because he's cool, and he's my stand-in for Ubosathla. Oh my gosh, his foot just fell off. I guess I'll have to buy a new one. So here's my Ubosathla stand-in, the Smog Monster. And let's talk about what his faction is like. So his faction takes time to expand like Windwalker, but unlike Windwalker and some other factions, over time his strength actually tends to diminish compared to other factions. They're getting better monsters out, He's not. He just has Portoshagras. They're getting spell books that give him combat power. He's really not. He's able to seize an early advantage and get a power edge, and he can use that in like turn 2 or turn 3 to get like a leg up on the other factions, and then he's got to use that because he's going to lose it later on in the game. So he's early to mid game bloomer. Okay, later on in the game, you're going to have to actually rely on the other factions to help you win by using your powers where you are like not allied with them exactly, but you're sort of parasitizing them and taking their abilities to help you. So that's how he works. Early game, very strong. Then you have to hold on to that edge, hoping that it won't diminish so much that you lose and you'll win. Right now, he's really strong. He's still in playtest, but we've definitely seen the trend of he gets up that early game in the second, third wave, then he starts going down. So you just have to cling onto the edge as long as you can. Those are the 4 factions we have in the game, and you can see how their personalities, their traits different. Every faction works best for some players than others. I know people that absolutely love Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat faction, and they play it every chance they get. I know others who can't stand it. It just doesn't fit their play style. But that's the beauty of Cthulhu Wars, because with the 8 factions we have lots of play styles. A person that is very flexible can of course play any of them. Some people have like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that they prefer, and that's just dandy. It's the interaction and the difference and the asymmetry that makes the fun of this game, I think. Thank you.